that you are making. But, Mr. President, I disagree with you on one aspect. Saying that this is part of the capital part of our budget presupposes that this had come to us and we had approved it, and then it was put in the budget for us to use. That's not the position. The position is that we will now approve some of this. I emphasize some because my good friend Olamileko had said that everything that was recommended was good. Doesn't follow. It is when we get to the point of looking at each one of them that we will now determine which of these projects would help in growing our economy. Once we determine that that can now have that multiplier effect on the economy, we can now approve it because subsequently it will help us. So now that we have said that we are going to take it line by line.
I didn't say so. I said we are going to vote on the long enough in this Senate, in this chamber, to know that there is nothing like line by line for this kind of report. It's normally the recommendations of the committee that are voted on. So it's not like there is going to be line by line. We had this debate before, so our committee worked on this. We have the report. We know what the projects are. Now, there is nowhere, if it is a bill, then we can go clause by clause. But if it is not a bill, then we cannot go clause by clause because there is there are no clauses. So that's the point. Yeah.
What we will just do is to say, let us pass everything in one go. The reason why they put it, this is for the power sector, this is for the road sector, this is for the rails, is so that we can look at it individually. So, will we not look at it? We will.
Exactly.
I may have misspoken if I said line by line. I'm saying each recommendation per part of the economy or the ministry or whatever, or the states, we would have to look at each one. Because I have some reservation.
Mr. Minority Leader, and do things differently. If our reports like this one are treated as reports not from bills and does not in any way require clause by clause because there are no clauses, then we cannot go clause by clause because there are no clauses. Our committee had worked on this. They have recommended certain things. What we vote on is the recommendation of the committee, and they are itemized on the report. So when we vote, you could decide to vote against everything if you don't want, or you can amend, if you think there is something. Just allow me finish because you can't talk until I stop talking. So you can decide, make your mind. If it comes to East-West Road, you don't want East-West Road, for example, and therefore we shouldn't have infrastructure. You vote against it. But there are no clauses to be voted against. And by the way, let me make this point very clear. This is a request. And what I said is, if, for example, this is to fund our capital budget, it means the capital budget is waiting until we pass. There will be no implementation of the capital budget. So it's a choice, really. If we want, we pass. If we don't want, we don't pass. But what I think most of us want is to vote consciously. And all of us want to do that. In fact, we are going to make it very tight, spending this money. We're not just going to approve it and leave it like that.
Mr. President.
I think you can round up now. Don't put words into my mouth. So you round up, please, Minority Leader. We have to make progress anyway.
Thank you. I just have to round up, Mr. President, with a very apt saying, which I think the whole world knows. He who goes a borrowing goes a sorrowing.
Looking at the facts before us, and then as has been tabled, Mr. President, I think we cannot continue to live in isolation. If the country has no capacity presently to fund our capital budget, then our job here is useless. I am of the fact that we should adopt and support this recommendation. But, Mr. President, for me, that is of the opposition party and the caucus of YPP, representing the good people of Anambra South and Southeast, it's very, very important that I also put up a mark about our second River Niger Bridge, which needs to be funded from this fund, and our railway interlinking project. Please, Mr. President, I will give my support, even as opposition party, to this approval so that we can implement our capital budget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Leader of the Senate.
I didn't want really at this point, to come into this, but I think it's good to come with some clarifications, which I think this Senate needs in order to appreciate the totality of what is contained in this matter. And for us to understand these issues clearly, in order to make decisions one way or the other, I think it's important to look at the macro economy of this country as a whole. Mr. President, here we are, having an economy of about 140 trillion. From that economy, you are only able to derive revenue of about 8 trillion for your budget, while you are making a budget of about 10 to 11 trillion, which means that about 3 trillion of that budget is going to come out as loans. Now, when you look at the budget to GDP or debt to GDP ratio, you are okay. You are okay because the largeness of the budget of the GDP, the debt is not much. But when you come to look at the revenue to debt repayment ratio, there you have a problem. Now, the danger is that under these circumstances, for some people who know something small about macroeconomy, about how the economy works, if you don't take any loan at all, you say nothing, do nothing, then it is a question for stagnation, complete total stagnation. But the other thing that most economists do is to take the risk of taking debt so that you can invest in the macroeconomy, particularly in the real sectors of the economy, with a view to raising revenues so that through taxation you can be able to augment the revenue to GDP ratio and also the amount of money that you are going to make out of the investment that you are making from debt. There is no economy anywhere in the world, anywhere, even developed economies, where debts are not used for growth. Now, the dangers that we have fallen in this country, really, is that we, in the National Assembly and also in the Executive, have not been tracking the utilization of these loans to make sure that they are invested in the right places where revenue can accrue to the larger economy to pay off the debt and then to increase the revenue that comes from the investments. These are the issues. So the major issue now is not really the question. Personally, for me, if you invest in development of the Nigerian ports, or you invest in East-West Road, or you invest in development of harbors, or you invest in Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, these are good investments. Even if you are not investing in Argungu, which is my village in the north, because the cost you are reducing cost of production of goods that are coming from the post to Nigeria, and you are including also reducing the cost of the businesses that exist in my own village. So it's not a question of regional development, it's a question of targeting that key sectors of the economy which relaxes a lot of the constraints, the infrastructure constraints that...
Leader. Leader, please round up.
My suggestion is to go through the... Well, I'm a lecturer. I used to be one.
Leader, you are protected. Leader, please round up.
Areas that we think we don't agree with, let's highlight those areas, for further debate, so that we can say we need more information on this so that we can know that the value that is accruing is not there. So we can go through the recommendations of the committee and then disagree where we can agree where we can agree, and disagree where we don't agree. That's all.
Okay. I will put the questions on the recommendations. And there are 2 recommendations. But before I do that, I just want to draw our attention to recommendation 2, even before we come there, so that we're able to read and digest it. I think recommendation 2 is a very tight way of ensuring that no of these funds, none, is utilized without our approval, even in the future. And that is talking about the law agreement containing the whole terms and conditions of the loan must be forwarded to the National Assembly prior to the execution of same for concurrence and proper documentation. I think this is a way of ensuring that we have complete grip on this. So we have a safeguard here, really. So I will put the questions on the 2 recommendations. There is no information in our standing orders. Okay, you can.
But I think we need to be properly guided. If you go by just the recommendation, you might not be properly guided. Because if you look at the context, because you must also approve and ensure, you must also make sure that whatever we approve will be implemented. Because if you look at, for example, look at F in recommendation 1, it's 17 billion from China exim. Is 17 billion from China exim possible with the coronavirus? So we need to be properly guided, so such that we don't have.
Distinguished Albert, much for reminding us there is coronavirus in China. But we want to be on the positive side of these discussions. We shouldn't just cut these things that we feel we can get. They have worked long time ago to ensure that this happens. So thank you very much for reminding us. I will put the questions then. What order is it?
Order 43. Leave of the President of the Senate. The Senator may make a personal explanation.
Go ahead and read.
Mr. President, you had just told us.
No, I want you to read the order.
But no controversial matter may be brought forward, because I've done the first part.
Go ahead, read it all.
No controversial matter may be brought forward, nor any debate arise upon the explanation.
Continue.
Proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought.
You have not submitted, so I'm not allowing you to take that order. We are going to the standing the recommendations. That the Senate, these are the recommendations. Senator Albert Bassi, are you going to vote from there? No, it's okay. You can. There are 2 recommendations that the Senate do approve the underlisted ongoing negotiation of external borrowing in the sum of 22 billion 798,446,773 dollars under the 2016-2018 medium-term expenditure borrowing rolling plan. Point of order, Minority Leader.
President, 14A, privileges are the rights enjoyed by Senate collectively and by members of the Senate individually, conferred by the legislative houses, powers and privileges Act Cap 208, Laws of the Federation 1990, and other statutes, and by practice, precedent, usage, and custom. B, where a matter of privilege arises, it shall be taken up immediately. Mr. President, we are going to pass a loan approval of $27 billion. And we, who are going to pay back that, are making efforts to make sure that this is clarified to other people. And Mr. President, you are not giving us the privilege to make our points known and come across. And we don't see anything that is so difficult for us.
Where is your privilege? Just you cited which privilege of yours was not given to you.
My privilege, Mr. President, I was calling for point of order to point out this thing to you.
Haven't I given you the chance now? You raised a point of order 43. You didn't tell me what you are going to raise. I said I denied you because that is what the standing order says. You are supposed to tell me in details. You didn't even tell me a synopsis. I didn't even know what you are going to say. So I denied you that, but before then you spoke even more than once. And I think, Minority Leader, you know the process here more than anybody else. You have not been denied your privilege. In fact, the minority has had more than a fair share in this respect.
And what all I wanted to point out, which we are finding out on this floor that you don't want us to do, is that we are saying that there are some aspects of this loan that we must have to vote on to decide whether they are in our interest or not. And the Senate leader had even confirmed with me and said that all he wants also, and he's right here, you can find out from him, that we accept the ones that we raise our economy. We have some issues with certain things inside here. The reason why reports of committees come to the General House is so that we can make our inputs into those things. Now, we want to make our input and we're being shut out. We're just being told either pass or not pass. And I think that that is not very, very good for the economy of this.
Minority Leader, I don't want the discussion on this loan to degenerate into partisanship. Please. We shouldn't degenerate it into partisanship. This is for our country, for our people. And I want to say that you raise your hand. I recognize you in almost all the two cases you raise your hands. The only one I denied you was when you came under 43. And under 25, our standing order 25, H. I interpret the rules. My understanding was you are supposed to have at least intimated me of what you are going to say. And that was how I ruled. It was not any effort to muzzle you. So there is nothing wrong in voting against whatever you don't want. Nobody is saying you shouldn't do that. And if you have an explanation that will guide us, we have taken so much explanations from our colleagues that will guide us to process this report. So we don't have to degenerate it into partisanship. I think we have come a long way.
Please, you are putting us in a very impossible situation because you're telling us to pass even those things that we approve of. It's either we say no or we say yes. And we say that that is not the way that we do our debates here. We must look at each item and decide whether each item will go or not go. This is also about Nigeria. It has nothing to do with partisanship. Actually, if you want to talk about partisanship, some of our colleagues here have also complained that this is lopsided in one section of this country. And we didn't want to make an issue of it. And we didn't. So, Mr. President, I want to ask on behalf of all our colleagues here that we take this issue item by item, because we cannot just wholesalely pass everything that comes. If we have to do that, then we don't need to sit here and debate anything. Because
Minority Leader, you are going to vote your conscience. I will ask the committee when I will put the recommendations into vote. When we come to, for example, under World Bank, there are projects under World Bank. We'll ask the committee chairman to tell us. No, I'm not asking him to speak, please, so that it doesn't turn into only you and I. We'll ask the committee chairman, projects under World Bank, he names them, projects under Islamic Development Bank, and so on and so forth, and we vote. There is nothing like trying to suppress anybody. I don't even believe in that. In fact, it would be unfair for you to accuse me of suppressing the minority. You are behaving like a majority. Everybody here is just listening to you. Senator Gabriel Suswam.
Mr. President, this is a very contentious and important and serious issue. I would appeal to you to allow us go to an executive session for 10 minutes before we come out. Because there are certain information, Mr. President. No, wait now. There are certain information, Mr. President, that I also have that will guide the House properly, especially as it relates to the power sector, that I do not want to say it in the full glare of the press. And those are very important information. So if we take 10 minutes and come out, we tie down the knotty issues and come out and then do what we need to do. So, Mr. President, my appeal to you and the colleagues is that let us take 10 minutes of executive session, because there are certain information. The committee in certain areas didn't get the information correctly. And if we pass it as it is, we either be passing under or over, because there are issues that have cropped up that I was telling the chairman that he didn't capture some of the things that we need to guide the passage of this thing properly. And these are very important, but I don't want to raise those things, in the open this thing. But if we go into an executive session for 10 minutes, we'll be able to tie up this thing and come out, and then we'll go ahead and I believe that all of us support this borrowing, but there are knotty issues that we must address. In support, we support it. But let us address some of these little knotty issues. Then we'll come out as one house, and then we'll go ahead and do the needful.
Please let me make this appeal. This is not the first time Nigeria is going to borrow money to fund projects. We have been doing that a long time. And of course, we are supposed to be responsible for our actions. We are going to vote on the basis of what we accept to be right. And I just want to find out from the chairman if he has the details of the borrowing with him, so that he tells us under World Bank, for example, and other agencies. And then we vote on the recommendations. I don't think we have to go into executive session. In fact, if we were to go to executive, we should have done that before we started this thing. Now we have reached a point at which we just go ahead. We either vote against it or we vote for it. But I believe that all of us will just vote on the basis of what we believe in. So, Chairman, are you ready with the details? You know, maybe what I thought we could have done was to look at those items that you don't want or someone does not want to vote for, and then point them out. It is my desire that all of us do the same thing, but because this is a parliament, we have different opinions sometimes. We can vote with whichever way we believe is in the best interest of our people. But let me assure everyone here that what we are trying to do is simply to do what is necessary for our country. So
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, in view of a lot of the information that's required and some controversies that have arisen out of these issues, I move that we go into closed session of about 15 minutes so that we can sit down and talk to ourselves and come out to a resolution of some of the major issues that are involved. I so move.
hold on, please. Those minority leader, will you second for us to go into closed session?
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Those in favor that the Senate goes into closed session, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it.